Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding out that the Yankees gave up one of the biggest talents in their organization, along with 3 other promising players, just to acquire a single pitcher. At first glance, that may sound like an exaggeration or even an unthinkable strategy for a franchise that has always tried to balance immediate competitiveness with building a solid future. However, that possibility has started to gain momentum behind the scenes in Major League Baseball and is generating intense debate among analysts, journalists, and fans. The reason is simple. Mason Miller has become one of the most valuable players in the entire league, and any team interested in acquiring him will have to pay a price that could completely change the direction of its organization. The big question is unavoidable. Is it worth sacrificing an important part of the Yankees' future to try to increase their chances of winning the World Series right now? This discussion gained even more attention after a projected trade package emerged showing what it would take just to convince the San Diego Padres to begin a conversation. The proposal includes 4 important names from the Yankees organization: pitcher Will Warren, promising prospect Ben Hess, young phenom Jasson Domínguez, and infield prospect Dax Kilby. The most impressive part, however, is not the size of the package, but the fact that many people believe even that offer would not be enough to convince the Padres to part with Mason Miller. That shows just how much the right-hander's value has skyrocketed in recent months and reinforces the idea that he is now viewed as an almost untouchable asset within the league. To understand why this potential deal is drawing so much interest, it is necessary to look at the Yankees' current situation. The franchise remains one of the biggest powerhouses in baseball, carries an enormous payroll, and enters virtually every season under pressure to compete for a championship. However, the reality of recent years has shown that simply assembling a roster full of stars does not guarantee playoff success. On several occasions, the team has struggled precisely in the most decisive moments, when every inning is precious and any detail can determine the outcome of a series. In those situations, having a dominant bullpen often makes all the difference, and that is exactly where Mason Miller enters the picture. Miller stands out not only because of his numbers. His profile is that of a pitcher capable of completely changing the dynamic of a game in the highest pressure moments. His fastball frequently reaches eye-popping velocities, and when combined with devastating breaking pitches that are extremely difficult to hit, it makes him one of the most feared closers in MLB. In addition, his ability to pile up strikeouts in critical situations has led many experts to view him as a true difference-maker for any team dreaming of winning the World Series. Players with this type of talent are extremely rare, especially when they still have several years of team control remaining, a factor that increases his market value even more. But that very value is what makes many Yankees fans hesitate. Among the 4 names involved in the projected trade, perhaps none generates as much emotion as Jasson Domínguez. Since signing with the organization, he has been treated as a future star and quickly earned the nickname, the Martian, because of the extraordinary talent he displayed at such a young age. Despite injuries and a slower adjustment process than many expected, Domínguez is still viewed as an athlete with enormous potential and someone capable of becoming one of the main faces of the franchise in the coming years. Giving up a player with that kind of ceiling is a decision that would certainly divide opinions both inside and outside the organization. The other names also carry significant weight. Will Warren has already shown that he can establish himself as an important member of the Yankees rotation, providing quality and depth at one of the most valued positions in the league. Ben Hess is considered one of the highest upside pitchers in the franchise's minor league system, particularly because of his strikeout ability and the steady development he has shown since the beginning of his career. Dax Kilby, meanwhile, has emerged as one of the organization's most promising young infielders, drawing the attention of scouts because of his rapid growth and his potential to become a regular major league player. When those 4 names are placed together in the same deal, it becomes clear that the Yankees would be giving up a substantial portion of their future. The detail that stands out the most, however, is that even such a massive package may not be enough. Several analysts believe the San Diego Padres would only engage in serious discussions if the Yankees included some of their most valuable prospects, such as George Lombard Jr. or Carlos Lagrange. That possibility raises the stakes even higher because it means touching players who are considered pillars of the organization's future. In other words, the Padres are signaling that they have absolutely no urgency to trade Mason Miller and would only do so if they receive compensation capable of fundamentally transforming their development system. That is precisely where Brian Cashman faces one of the biggest dilemmas of his tenure. On one side is the opportunity to acquire one of the most dominant pitchers in Major League Baseball and immediately strengthen a roster that dreams of winning the World Series. On the other is the risk of compromising a large portion of the franchise's future for a single player, no matter how talented he may be. And perhaps the hardest question is still to come. If the Padres truly demand even more than this four-player package, how far will the Yankees be willing to go to make Mason Miller the new owner of the bullpen in New York? The decision becomes even more complex when we analyze the context in which the Yankees find themselves this season. The team knows it has a legitimate window to compete for a championship, especially because it is built around experienced players in their prime and a roster capable of going toe-to-toe with any opponent in the American League. At the same time, the front office understands that opportunities like this do not last forever. Every passing season increases the pressure to turn a talented roster into a champion, and it is precisely that sense of urgency that could lead the franchise to consider a trade this aggressive. At the same time, there is a philosophy that Brian Cashman has always tried to maintain throughout his tenure, preserving part of the minor league system to ensure long-term competitiveness. Although the Yankees are known for their financial power, the franchise's recent history shows that many of its best rosters were built by combining major acquisitions with young players developed within the organization. Giving up four important names at once would significantly reduce that depth, something that could create consequences not only this season, but also for years to come. Another factor that weighs heavily in this discussion is the market itself. The more teams show interest in Mason Miller, the higher his value tends to climb. The Padres know they possess an extremely rare player and, for that very reason, do not need to trade him out of necessity. If an offer does not fully meet the organization's expectations, they can simply choose to keep one of the best closers in baseball under contract for several more seasons. That strong negotiating position gives San Diego even more leverage and increases the pressure on any franchise trying to pry Miller away from its roster. That is why the question dominating conversations behind the scenes is simple, yet incredibly difficult to answer. How much is it worth sacrificing the future to increase the chances of winning right now? This is a decision capable of defining the direction of the Yankees for many years, and as the speculation continues to grow, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. If New York truly wants Mason Miller, the final price may be even higher than any fan imagined. Regardless of how this story ends, one conclusion can already be drawn. The Yankees have reached a point where every decision made by the front office can alter the future of the franchise. If Brian Cashman chooses to preserve his top prospects, the roster will continue to have a young foundation capable of sustaining the team for years, but the question of what might have happened if Mason Miller had worn the Yankees' pinstripes will remain. On the other hand, if the organization decides to pay a historic price to complete this deal, all the pressure will shift to immediate results, because a trade of this magnitude will only be considered a success if it is accompanied by a major championship. It is also important to remember that the MLB market can change quickly. An unexpected injury, a prolonged slump, or even the emergence of another available player can completely reshape a team's plans. For that reason, while Mason Miller is one of the most coveted names on the market right now, the Yankees are undoubtedly evaluating other alternatives to strengthen their bullpen without having to sacrifice so much of their prospect system. That has always been one of Brian Cashman's trademarks, keeping multiple paths open before making a definitive decision. Meanwhile, the fan base is following every new rumor with a mixture of excitement and concern. Many believe Miller would be the missing piece needed to turn the bullpen into one of the strongest units in the league and significantly increase the team's chances of winning the World Series. Others argue that giving up players such as Jasson Domínguez and other developing talents would be far too great a risk, especially because no one can guarantee that a single acquisition will be enough to deliver a championship. One thing, however, seems clear: the next few weeks promise to be decisive for the Yankees. If Mason Miller truly becomes available, New York will inevitably be placed at the center of the speculation, and every move made by the front office will be watched closely by the entire baseball community. Now I want to know your opinion. Would you make this trade to bring Mason Miller to the Yankees? Or do you believe the price being asked by the Padres is simply too high? Leave your answer in the comments. See you next time, Yankees Nation.